watch most of them today, and we'll see how all these formulas are captured in one simple formula called XLookup. How XLookup is better than all these formulas. Now, whatever I'm learning now, or whatever I'm going to teach you right now, and most of them can be accessed with one simple formula called XLookup.
Okay.
So let's see how to do it. And I don't take anything out of these formulas, but when we are working with XLookup, we do a hell a lot more. So let's see how to do that. So this is the first thing that we're going to see today. Is we're going to see how to work with lookup function. When I go to a lookup function, normally a lookup function is a static function. So we cannot do anything dynamic in nature, but we can do a lot of things static. When I normally give a lookup functionality, so I can see I have two different syntax comes into play. So I'll be having a lookup value, a lookup vector, and a result vector, and lookup value and array. So whatever formula that I feel that is relevant for me, I can choose. We want to pick up a lookup functionality. So these are the logic that I have here. I have three syntax concepts: lookup value and lookup vector, or I can call it as an array or result vector. So I'm going to handle this in two different dimensions. So let me handle the first part. So I'm going to handle the first point called customer. So when I choose the first option of it, so you can see I'm going to use the lookup value, lookup vector, and result vector as the condition here. If that is the case, then what I will do is I'll select the respective the invoice column completely. And I will select the column that I'm looking forward for. In here, the customer columns. When I do this, the first formula will work for me. So how I'm going to do that? So the data lies on the first sheet. So this is where we have it. I'm going to choose the invoice number top to bottom. I'm going to choose customer top to bottom in my first condition. I want to get the customer name for this particular invoice number. Let's see how to do that. So I'm going to just say equals lookup functionality. When I type the lookup function, automatically choose two of the information. So when I give a control A, it'll ask you a question. So which argument that you're going to choose? You want to choose the first argument or the second one? So I'm going to just pick up the first one. So when I pick up the first one, you can see I have three different logicals here. The first part is the lookup functionality, where I'm going to look up the invoice number in the new sheet. So for example, in here, I'm going to pick up the first number here. Then when I tab it down to the next line, it'll ask you what do you want to do next. I'll say that I'm going to lookup vector. The lookup vector will be on my raw data, that is my sheet one. I'm going to select the whole invoice column from top to bottom.
Okay.
Whenever I work with the lookup functionality, I have to remember that my lookup vector should be equally sized with my result vector. I cannot have one number short or one number more. So when I choose my next result vector, it has to be at the same height as I have my lookup vector. So when I come back to my sheets here, so I'm going to pick up the customer name here and select the whole. So now you can see that the lookup vector is A2 to A1940 and result vector G2 to G1940.
Yeah.
Both of them are at same height, so we will not have any issues. If we have shorter here and there, probably our answer will also be a little shorter.
Okay.
So now I'm going to give an OK. And before I do that, generally whenever I take up data like this, I'm going to press an absolute cell reference for both the data so that I can see. So now when I scroll it down, this is what the answer that I have.
What's the difference between lookup and VLookup in this? Like we can
When
use
I
the
go
VLookup and
for
get
a
the answer?
VLookup is much more, what to say, more specific orientation. Here, it is not more specific orientation. So when you go for an XLookup, probably we follow the lookup functionalities style only. But XLookup does something more than what an normal lookup function does. But it is a little different from what we do in a VLookup. When I come back to the VLookup again, I will anyway go through this process one more time. For a single column VLookup and multi-column dynamic VLookup, I'll show you what is the difference that I have between a lookup function and a VLookup function.
Sure.
So the next logic, if I want to do the same invoice number, but I want to find out sales rep, not by using the first formula, but by using the second formula. Then what happens is my syntax logic changes here. So this is not anymore a vector, this is only an array. So when I do this, I'm going to select until my result column. For example, now I want for this invoice number, who is the sales representative? So let me pick up the second option of our lookup. So I'm going to just come back here. I'm going to say equals lookup and control A. Then it asks you a question. Your argument. I'm going to pick up the next one. So I'm going to give an enter. And I pick up this, I get only two of them here. So one is the lookup value, next one is the lookup vector. So lookup value will be this. When I come back to the lookup vector, I'm not going to select a particular column like I chose in my previous point, where I chose the invoice column separately and the result column separately. Instead of that, I'm going to choose until the last column. So here I'm going to select from invoice number to sales rep. I cannot choose any other column other than sales rep. If I choose customer, my result will show the customer name, not the sales rep name. So I'm going to choose the whole data. Let the last column be the resulted column so that it gives you the answer for you what you want.
Okay.
So the lookup will become a little different here. Here I'm going to choose a singular column when I use the lookup vector and a result vector. Whereas when I go for an array, I'm going to choose a range of data. And my result columns, results should be the last column in my array function. So when I choose this list, I need to remember if I want until customer, then I'll choose the column until customer. If I want it until sales rep, then I'll choose until sales rep. If I want to get the city, then I'll choose until city. So my resulted column will be the last column of choice or last column of my array table should be. Then my answer will be ready. If I choose one column extra or one column other than the one which I want to choose, then my answer will all be a wrong one. That's the difference when I deal with the first formula and a second formula. So second formula gives you the range here. First formula gives you a column name here.
Okay.
To make my formula even more readable and make my formula even more better, I'm going to make a small change right now. I'm going to create a name manager. So name manager is not a table, but kind of a table. I name a data by it, a column. So I have three types here. I'm going to use the only one type here to make our formula more readable for us. I'm going to use column-based name manager. So the keyboard shortcut for column-based name manager will be Control.
Okay.
Let's see how to do that. So I'm going to come back to my lookup functionality.
Mm-hmm.
And delete these two formulas. Whatever formula that I write, that's going to reflect in here. I kept a formula text for the respective cells.
Okay.
Let me come back to my data and select the whole data and come to the formulas tab and click create from selection. Then gives you a small box and it says that create a name for selection, and I need the name to be the row's name or the column's name. So my first column name should be invoice number, then date, country, state, city, sales rep, customer, product, purchase, sales, and so on. So I'm going to keep the top row only checked here, the rest of them should be unchecked. When I give an OK, now I got all my name manager. I want to see 10 columns here now. So when I click the name manager here, you can see 10 columns coming up here in an alphabetical order. Not in the order that I have it, but it comes in an alphabetical order.
Okay.
So earlier what I did is when I use lookup formula, I manually chose each and every data one by one. Now I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to just say equals the lookup function. I'm going to choose the first option now. The first option is going to be my invoice number. When I come down here, I need to choose the invoice number again in the entire column part. So I'm going to press F3 to recall my name managers. Now you can see whatever name manager that I've created on a column based, all the name managers are displayed here. So I'm going to just pick the invoice number. Then I tab it down. Now I need the customer name to come into place. So I'm going to press F3 again, and I'm going to choose the customer.
Sorry, sir, for opening the names, what we need to press?
For the function argument, I'll give Control A. For recalling the name manager, I'll press F3.
F3. Yeah. Okay, got it.
F3 is the keyboard shortcut which allows you to get it done. So when I give an OK right now, so now we can see that. So now when I drag it down, the answer will be the same. Now we can see what I picked here. I picked up an invoice number for the lookup vector and customer for the person vector. But this I cannot do that in the next formula because next formula is going to be a partial selection. So I'm going to select until my resulted column or result column. So when I come down here, I'm going to use the lookup functionality. So I'm going to use the second one. And the invoice number is this. Then when I come down here, I have to choose until the sales step here. And F4 once. And now I get my list here for this point. When I started this particular function, I termed this function a static function. The reason why is if I want another result right now, I have to do this process one more time completely, or I have to edit the entire data one more time. So that's how it's going to work for us. But when I use a VLookup, I have an extra edge. That's why VLookup is a little better than the lookup function. Even though for all the lookup function, the mother of lookup function is lookup. After that only we got the vertical lookup, horizontal lookup, and two-way lookups. Then we have the new one called XLookup and so on. But initially, when people want to pull out data on a columnar basis, most of the data are column tabled one. So they used lookup function only. But when I pick up a lookup function, I have an approximate answers coming every time. So when I give a number which is not there, so when I give 1960 and give an enter, it still gives you an answer. But when I go back to my sheet here and see what is my last number, I have 1938. There is no 1960, but it gives you an answer for this column as hello world is the customer and Mahi is the sales rep. When I come back to the last point, you can see hello world is the customer and Mahi is the sales rep. So it picks up the last active data that I have and answers that in this list, even though it is not right and relevant. This has been broken and this has been made exact. If it is really required, you want to see an answer there, then you give approximate match. If you don't want something like that, if you say that particular data is not there, give not applicable, then I can choose that also in VLookup. Plus, that I may not be able to do in a lookup function. Lookup function always gives you an answer. It never say no to it, but VLookup does say no to you if you are not giving the right answer.
Yeah, not applicable shows.
Exactly. Yes. Not applicable shows that if you are giving an exact match, it does. Let's jump to the next part. So I'm going to go back to the VLookup functionality. So this is what we are talking about. So now I'm deleting the code, or I'm going to just change this to 5 and give an enter. You can see it's giving you all the answers that I need to see here. Let me just change this point. I'm going to create a VLookup right now. So I'm giving 7 here. So when I give a 7 here, it has to give you the answer called customer. So I'm trying to take the 8 itself here. So let me just pick up the data for you. So you can see I have numbers 500, 1000, 1500, 1750, 1945, and so on. My last number that I showed in the data part is 1938,
Yeah, it's
and
more
I
than
have 1945. So if I give an exact match here, so it's not going to give me the answer there. If I give approximate match, it's going to give you the answer there. Let's see how to do the VLookup. So I'm going to come back to this point. We already saw this once. I'm going to say equals VLookup control A, that gives you a box. Normally, when I look up a lookup function, I pick the numbers here. Now I'm going to pick up the header here because even the header is going to come only once. The entire address. Before I do a VLookup, so let me add one more dimension for my name manager. I said we have three types of name manager. I showed you the first one. I'm going to show you the second one called range-based name manager. So if I know one data that I'm going to use time and again, then I will create a range-based name manager. I don't have a keyboard shortcut here, but I can create one if I wanted to. So I'm going to select this list completely. Invoice column until the last column. Then I'll come back to my formula and click. Now you can see it refers the whole data part that I have here. I'm going to call this as raw or sales data. So when I do this, the advantage that I have in the list is selecting an entire table can be easy for me because I name them now. Let's see how to do that. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to just say equals VLookup control A. Choose the invoice number header. When I come down here, I want to recall my name manager. This time I want to recall the name manager for a range, not for each and every column. So I'm going to press F3 once. It gives you the list here. So I'm going to see what is the data that I have here. I have sales data here. I'm going to give an OK. It shows the whole data for me. Invoice number, date, country, blah, blah, blah. Then when I tap down and I'm going to choose the 8 here and give an absolute cell reference. Tab it down. If I want a 0 here, it'll be an exact match. If I want a 1, it'll be an approximate match. So let me do both of them. When I give an enter, so now it gives you the product. I'm going to drag it all. So it's not going to show you the last answer. I'm fine with that. Now I wish to have the same 8 again. But this time, I'm going to use the approximate match. So my answer is going to change for the last line alone. Let me come back to my list here. I'm going to just say equals VLookup control A. Choose the invoice number, tab it down 3 to call my sales data. Okay, tab it down, and I'm going to select 8 here and absolute cell reference, tab it down. I can either leave it blank or I can give a 1 here. Both gives you the approximate match for us.
okay.
Because VLookup is built in such a way that you can pick up approximate by naturally. By default, you'll get that. If you want to specify it to be more accurate, so you can give a 1 here. If you leave it, it's still going to give you the same answer. Even if I give 1, it's going to give you the same answer. So now we can see I'm get one more answer last. The rest of the answer remains same, but the last answer is changed. This is single column, dynamic VLookup.
Got it.
One with exact match,
One
with approximate. Now moving to the next logic. So I want to recall whatever we have learned in our cell references earlier. Because now I'm going to answer more than one column in my list like this. I want to answer all of them in one single VLookup. That's why I call this as dynamic multi-column VLookup. So I'm going to do the whole list. Now I'm going to create that. So the logic behind this remains same. So I'm going to say equals VLookup and control A. But again, here I'm going to make a small change here. So when I choose the invoice number here, I'm going to give a lock here. So I'll give a column lock here. So I'm going to press F4 twice. Then in the table array, we know the table array, what is it? So I'm going to press F3 to recall my table manager or the name manager to bring the table for me. Then when I come down here, I want the first column to be answered as 6. Then when I move on to the next column should be 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So I'm going to press the 6 here and give F4 twice. And then give a tab. And I'm going to make it 0 here so that it's going to be exact match for me. When I give a control enter, it only answers me the first column. It's going to answer me all the column and all the rows here. And I gave a control R for the other component to pull up. I give control D to answer my column part here.
Okay.
This is the way I can add the number. And now I can swap this number to anything. So let me put this as 5. Let me put this as 8. I want a 6 here. I want a 7 here. And I need a 4 here. You will name whatever you want. You get what you want. This is multi-column dynamic VLookup.
Okay.
If I'm fast anywhere, you ask me to repeat again, I can do that for you.
No, that's fine, sir. And this is for the freezing part of the column.
Okay. So now I want to just build the next one. This is very rarely or seldom used in a list. So let's see how to do that. So I'm going to just select this list. So I want to pick up some customers' numbers here. So I want to know the second invoice done to whom, what, where, how, everything. Let me take one of the logics here. I don't want to take all of them here. I want to pick up the first two. I want the invoice number 2 date, which country I build it, which state I build it, which city I build it, and so on. I want to go for it. Here the locking is very, very important, so I have to be very careful when I do so. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to just say equals XLookup. They'll ask you what you are looking forward for. So my lookup value is my bill number. And when I'm doing multiple column, then I'm going to give a row lock. Table array will be my entire table. Row index number is going to be the name of the row here, and it's going to be a column lock again, F4 thrice. Then I'm going to say exact match. Only when I get it, give it to me. I think that I made a mistake here. Choose the one first. Okay, I choose it another way around. Okay, yeah. I picked the wrong dimension here. So when I say XLookup, so my lookup value will be this. This is what I'm looking at. And the table array is going to be the one which is there below. And I want to look at this. I was giving you the detail of bill number 2 for me. Want more? Just choose them. Get a control R. Again, this is giving a date format here. That's quite understandable because I'm starting with a date. I'm going to convert this into a number. That makes sense.
So can we look up the formula for this, please?
Definitely, why not? So what did I do in here is I took the data in a horizontal mode. So to pick up a horizontal mode of data, so what I want is I want to know the invoice number 2's other details. This is not in a column base, this is in a row base, but my raw data is in column base.
Okay.
So I want to pick up them in the row base. So I'm picking up in the row base right now. So I want to know the invoice numbers date is what. So let me just remove few of them here. So I don't want to worry about this. And now I want to just pick up this. I'm going to say equals XLookup. Lookup value is I'm looking for a date for this invoice number.
Yeah.
So I want to scroll through all the columns. So I'm going to give an F4 thrice so that it will be a column lock. Then I'm coming back to this point. I'm bringing in the data from the sheet one. So let me choose the whole data for us. Instead of choosing the name manager, when I choose it, you can see the name manager comes up here on top, sales data automatically.
Yeah.
Then I tab it down and I come back to my two here, and I'm going to give a maybe a row lock. If you don't want, you can make it as an absolute cell if there's nothing wrong in it. I can give a 0 here and it gives you the dates, and I'm going to populate all of them. This will also give a date because as it is a date, so the data will be, the text will be coming out of normally, and you can see all of them are dates now. So
Yeah, the
change
format
that
of the cell.
perspective point, exactly right, because I just scrolled it down to the bottom part. I got it. If I change this to any other number,
Absolute
see
cell.
that I'm not getting the numbers because I gave an exact match.
Sir, I fail to understand one thing in this. Like, we are in all the VLOOKUPs, with the starting point was the base point was the invoice number.
Yeah.
But here we are starting with the particular part of the particular.
Exactly. The reason why we are going through this is because this is not anymore going in this pattern. This is going in this pattern. That's why it's called horizontal lookup. If the data is horizontal, probably I would have done it another way around. As the data is in vertical mode, and my result has to be in a horizontal mode. It is giving a different figure altogether for us. That is the only reason my XLookup looks a little weird.
Got it, sir.
So when I give this is the heading. So it gives you all the headers for us. One is the header.
Header. Got it, sir.
Okay. Shall I go for the next one? Next one is a little bigger topic, but it's enough for us today.
No, we can move for one more topic, sir.
Bigger one. It's okay. We can take up. Okay. So next logic that we are going to see is two-way lookup. So what is a two-way lookup is all about? So how a two-way lookup works for us? We're going to see a lot of things here. So there is a step involved in building a two-way lookup. I'm going to show you how all is going to come up and how all is going to work for us. When I go to a lookup, I need a data in a cross tab data type.
Okay.
That means I need a data in a row and as well as column, something like this. I have dates in the columns, I have informations on the rows. But I don't want any repetitions. I will need a unique value to come up here. So if I want to create a cross-tab data type, I can either do that by using a sum of functionalities or a pivot table. Using a pivot table is far easier because that's going to take a lesser time for us. Sums will consume a lot of man-hour, and I'm going to use a pivot table here. So I'm going to place the cursor here. This is where I want my data to be answered, or I want my cross table to be structured here. So let's see how to do that. So I'm going to go back to my list here and choose my whole data because I have 1, 2, 3 on top, and I'm going to come back to the insert and pivot table. Then select the whole data for me. It's asking you where you want to plant it. I'm going to say put it in a sheet that I say so. So existing worksheet, I'm going to put them in new two-way lookup workbook and give an OK. Now it gives you a pivot table here for me. You can take any 2 or 3 data here. So I'm going to take 2 different data here. I need a sales rep. I need a customer. I need sales. But my data are going in 1 dimension, not in 2 dimensions. So I want the second dimension to come into place. So I'm going to drag the customer to column. So this is how a two-way lookup will look like. So again, remember whenever I go forward for a longer data, so I need to keep the shorter one on the column, the longer one in row. So probably I'll swap this the other way around. This looks nice. This is a little shorter for me to read. I can read it in one eye-line view.
Sorry, sir. Can you repeat that? From where you drag the into rows?
So the point is when I kept the data, when I normally check the data, all of them are false in a row.
Yeah.
But I want one of the data to be in the column, another one to be in the row.
Hmm.
So what I did is I just pulled a customer to the column. But when I see it, it is not too, it's not easy to read because I have to drag this to read it completely. I want to make it readable. How I can make it readable is if I put the longer data in the row and shorter data in the column, probably it works better.
Yeah.
So I swapped the sales rep to the column and customer to the row.
Row. Okay.
Then the
Got it.
data was actually swapped or changed from one dimension to the other one, and I can see the whole data coming in for me here. And now I'm good to go. So I'm going to just select the whole data here and I'm going to give a comma separator here. So now this is good. And I want to make the data look relevant. So I'm going to just make the corrections that I look forward for and correct all of them. So now I got a list. Perfect. But by keeping the pivot table intact, I may not be able to do anything here. So I want to convert the pivot table
Into normal numbers.
into a normal table and then remove all the unwanted information that I have. So I'll select the whole data. I'll click any one of the data, or I can paste the cursor in any one cell, and when I give Control A, it select the whole pivot table. I'm going to just say copy and paste special value and enter. Then that will become a normal table.
Hmm.
So now I converted it. So I don't need the grand total and all. So I'm going to remove the grand total from on the row prospect and as well as on the column prospect. And I feel these are the data are which is a little weird, and I want to even delete this. Now I got the customer name and the sales rep name here, nice and tidy. Then I do a small formatting so that the data looks a little neat and tidy. Then select the whole data component and add the border. So now my cross tab data is ready for my result. So now I'm going to just use this my data component. So now I did the first component, that is I just want to find out a cross tab type.
Hmm.
I created them using pivot table. Then I made sure that my pivot tables are removed and made it into a normal table, and I removed all the unwanted. The fifth point is an optional one, so if you want to do it, you can definitely do that. If you don't want to do it, you can leave it as it is. But again, I preferably request you to do that. The reason why I wish you or I request you to do that is because that allows us to do things better.
Okay.
So let's see how I'm gonna work on that list. To work on that list, so I'm going to just create a drop down point for my customer and a drop down point for my sales. So I'm going to create two dimension. I'm doing it in a crossed way. You can do it in any way that you want. So I'm going to just make sure that this is the place where I'm adding my data, and yeah, this is the place I'm going to do. So I'm going to just give data validation drop down here. So data validation. I'm going to select a drop down list here and choose my data here because I know that these are unique data, so I don't have a problem in handling them. I'll make it a little bigger so that I can see the data when I enlarge this one. The same way I'm going to hit the data validation again, and I'm going to choose this, and now I got the drop down for this guy also. Perfect. Now I can choose any customer and any user.
Yeah.
The sixth and seventh steps actually prevails as a 1 point, but I put them in two different dimensions so that I can make you understand why I'm doing it. So why we are doing this is now I'm going to create a new logic, or maybe the two more formulas called match row with the row numbers, column to get the column. I would like to know Chennai Mobile lies on which row and Anu sales rep lies on which column. Find out that, I'm going to just say equals match, and I'm going to select this drop down and give a comma and choose the whole data here and add a absolute cell reference, give a comma, and I'm going to say only exact match has to come here. You can say that Chennai Mobile lies on the third row according to the system here. So when I move this data, my answer should also move. I'm going to put universal now, so it's in the 14th row. I choose 2020 mobile, it's going to show me 1. So it picks up where the data actually lies here. It writes the number there. The same way, I'm going to just use the match for the columns. I'm going to choose my Anu, comma, and choose the whole data here. And for ones, comma, 0, goes back here. Give an enter, you can see that match column gives you Anu is in the third column. So now I can choose some other person in here. So I'm going to just
Loki.
and I'm going to choose Achu here. So now it changes here. And if I choose maybe Durga, or if I choose Mahi, I can see that it's changing everywhere. Actually, I don't want to do this step, but I did it for our breakup. So now I'm going to use the last and the final step to find out the 2 index. I'm going to say use index function. And I choose all the data which I didn't touch at all. Because so far I played around with the headers in the leftmost column. I never touched the numbers here until now for any formula purpose. So once I choose the whole list, I'm going to here in there 4 ones, give a comma. The row number is this, comma, and the column number is so now you can see that this is the sales that has happened in 2020 mobile by Mahi. So when I choose Mahi here, and when I click 2020 mobile, or maybe I'll say Mahi here, you can see that the answer is when I drop down this, you can see that my answer is also changed.
Okay.
So this is how we will deal with that.
Two-way lookups.
Two-way. So when I come back to the next topic, that is the XLookup, it's going to eradicate all these 4 formulas, 1 and 2.
Sorry, come again?
When I use XLookup functionality, XLookup function can be used for a lookup function. XLookup function can be used for VLookup function. XLookup function can be used for HLookup function, and it can be used for 2-way lookup function. A single formula which is improved drastically, and you can get any of those. That's what we will see when we kickstart our class tomorrow. Tomorrow we are having a session, or Monday?
We can have tomorrow, sir. Sure.
Morning or evening?
Evening would be preferable, but if you want in the morning, we can have in the morning as well.
No, because from until tomorrow I don't have a problem. From Monday I may not be able to put the evening batch, because evening batch will be a little jam packed because everybody took a break from me last week. So I just use the morning slot or the evening slot. So that cannot be done from Monday, because from Monday I'll be having a morning session alone and may not have able to have the evening sessions.
Sure, sir. We can have
We
only
need to,
for the
stick to that
evening,
point of morning part 9 o'clock sharp. If you have anything on that day, let me know whether I can try. I can see where I can allocate you somewhere on that day. Because
Sure.
from next week I'm adding some few more new joinees, new admissions are coming up, so you may not be able to shift time
Monday
because I
to
gave the timing
only
for
for
them. So
tomorrow,
that,
sir.
no, that's it. I'm just informing you a prayer point, because if you have a plan of taking a class in the later part of next week, probably it may not be able to be done. But I will see to that we try to finish this, because we have another 6 more classes to finish, so that we can do probably by next weekend. I want to finish it, so that way I can take up another slot, because one more slot is still available. I have accepted another slot by 4th, but again 4th is impossible for us to finish. I have to take for the entire week, so we are on this. From 4th, they requested me for a slot, but again I'm going to give them only by 11th. So we have another good 9 days to go forward. So okay, we are only on Friday. I thought of.
Okay.
Probably we can finish off that by maybe Thursday or so. We can definitely do that. So tomorrow we will have it. How about day after tomorrow?
Yes, sir. We will have on the regular basis.
Yeah. Then we will do it. So tomorrow we are doing it in the evening, maybe the same time, 3 to 4.
Yeah, sure, sir.
We'll do that. That won't be a problem for me. Tomorrow we are starting XLookup.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.